Dalisay, Associate Member of NRCP Social Sciences Division, for the topic Disaster Risk Perception. A round of applause, please.
Ayan, sige. So maraming salamat at magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. So ang akin pong tatalakayin ngayong hapon ay tungkol sa disaster risk perception. Earlier, we've been talking about the more infrastructural, technical aspects, but this time we're going to look into the people aspect of water, particularly flooding. So, sige po. And in particular then, risk perception. Okay, next slide. So first of all, let's look at the Philippine context. I think it was already mentioned by Dr. Lagmay earlier that next slide. Because we are in the Pacific Ring of Fire, marami tayong mga hazards na na-encounter. Kasama doon yung mga storm surges, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes. So that puts us in a very vulnerable position, geographically. Next slide po. Okay, so climate. This is the climate types we have in the Philippines. So the next slide. Ito na ba yun? I think may isa pa may isa pa, okay, sige. So, going back to the previous slide. So, ito yung there are geophysical causes of flooding because we're looking at both the geophysical and the sociocultural dimensions of flooding. So, first of all, yung amount of rainfall, no? So, makikita natin yung isang picture dito. It is one of the factors that contribute to flooding. Sobrang daming ulan o tubig. No? And then of course, yung yung geographic aspect din, yung soil type, pag impenetrable, like granite, medyo mahirap mag-seep through ang tubig. Matagal bago pumailalim sa lupa ang tubig. Therefore, it also contributes to flooding. And of course, yung slope. The steeper the slope, the faster the runoff. So, ito po yung mga geophysical dimensions of flooding. And then the next slide, there are also anthropogenic activities that contribute to flood vulnerability. Are denuded forests, congestion, and of course, solid waste management, especially in the rural areas na congested na, and then madami silang na-generate na solid waste. So this is adding to the several maps that were already shown earlier, dagdag pa tayo ng map. So you see in the Mindanao area, you will find yung mga naka-red dyan, yan yung highly vulnerable to flooding. So makita natin na madaming areas talaga din, no? Ang may potential for severe floods that can be devastating. Next slide. So in other words, we've shown how we can be vulnerable to flooding. But vulnerability is also a social characteristic. It's a result of socioeconomic inequalities. Si Dr. Hall has been emphasizing then yung equity aspect, no? And not all groups are equally exposed to hazards and risks. There are certain groups that are more at risk than others, and not all groups have the same resources for coping. And the other factors that come in are also ethnicity, gender, age, economic status, and these are all determining factors as well. Next slide. So the capacity to bounce back may depend on risk management, which also depends on knowledge and environmental resources. Okay, environment and the resources. Next slide. So this is the relationship between risk perception and risk behavior. Studies have shown that risk perception leads to how people behave in the face of risks. But it's not always a one-to-one relationship. When you have higher risk perception, you also have higher risk behavior. Because there is something that comes in between. No? Risk perception is mediated by individual cognitive and affective assessment of risk based on individual experiences. So mag-iba-iba po ang perception of risk ng iba't ibang tao based on their life experiences. Aside from that, there are also societal perceptions of risk which are based on socioeconomic factors, sociocultural norms and expectations, as well as values. Douglas and Wildavsky proposed the cultural theory of risk, wherein they said that perceptions of risk tend to support the status quo in societies. Therefore, ito po ang minsan mas nananaig, kaya sinasabi natin bakit alam na nila yung risk that they are facing, and yet matigas ang ulo ng mga tao, no? So meron pong iba which I will go into in the coming slides. So understanding risk perception and how it defines risk behavior is important. One, for designing risk communication strategies. Ito po yung ating concern, di ba, sa local government. Iniisip po natin kung paano natin i-design ang ating programa para na ipapamahagi natin sa mga tao yung tamang risk perception, yung paano nila ma-shape ang kanilang risk perception so that they will adhere to our policies, yung ating mga sinasabi na, kailangan na kayong mag-evacuate kasi babahain na dito. As well as the formulation of disaster risk reduction policies that take into consideration the concerns and life ways of affected population. Kasi kailangan, we're not only, we are all, when we formulate policies, we are also sensitive to people's concerns, no? And flood risk perception, I thought this is also very important because sometimes flood risk perception may vary between DRRM implementers and the affected public. No, hindi sila nagkakaintindihan kung kailan at risk at kailangan nang mag-evacuate. Okay, next slide. Okay, so yung mga examples na i-share ko ngayon, they're based on 2 studies that I did. One is post-Haiyan. This was commissioned by PSURD after Haiyan kasi sabi ni then Director Guevara, we already have all the science. And yet, nangyari pa rin yung devastation after Yolanda. So, next slide. So, we're drawing from that and another study that I did on the ravaging storm in Tiwi Albay. You'll find many examples here that you will be able to relate with later. Next slide, please. Okay, so we asked, when we were doing the Haiyan project, we asked communities, our study communities, to do their perception maps of safe and unsafe spaces. So, surprisingly, magkaiba sila ng idea ng what are safe spaces from the safe spaces that have been designated by the local government. No? So, and their ideas of what is safe and what is not are based on their ideas of risk that they face whenever there is a hazard. So we've encountered this, no, yung sanay na kami dyan, lalo na nung time ng Yolanda, sabi nila, ilang bagyo na yung dumaan, no? So alam na nila what to do, no? That's what they thought. So there is what we call in the literature as the normalization of risk. Normal na sa kanila yung pagbaha, yung pagbagyo, yung pagdating ng storm surge, but probably not of the Yolanda proportions. No? So yun yung medyo hindi siguro na-emphasize nung time na yon in communicating the risk to storm surge in the coastal areas in Tacloban. Perceptions of safe and unsafe spaces are based on their own experiences as well. So they were identifying caves, they were identifying yung mga bahay na tinutuluyan nila pagka ng mga kakilala nila, no? Na pagka merong mga bagyo, malaking bagyong dumadaan. So these are usually houses made of concrete, but they were not able to identify the designated evacuation centers as safe spaces during that time. Next slide. So these are some of the socioeconomic factors that affect risk perception. Age, syempre, the very old and the very young, they're more at risk. Level of education, occupation, there are certain occupations, fishing occupations, they're more at risk. So hindi sila magpapalaot, they will not go fishing when there's a particularly strong storm. Income class, because of the ability to recover yung resources after a devastating experience with a devastating hazard. Next slide. sociocultural norms and expectations, gender, because of gender roles in the home, women are maybe more at risk. Kasi hindi sila basta aalis. No? We've encountered post-Yolanda na yung wife and the lola ay pareho silang namatay kasi the wife did not leave without, ayaw niyang umalis, mag-evacuate nang hindi niya masasama yung lola, her mother-in-law. So, sabi niya, sabi nung mga ibang babae kasi doon na nag-FGD kami, they said that kasi makakagalitan siya ng asawa niya at lahat ng kamag-anak ng asawa niya if she left her mother-in-law behind. No, hindi siya nag-evacuate. Kung siya mag-evacuate at iniwan niya yung lola, hindi naman niya basta-basta mabuhat kasi hindi na niya kayang buhatin yung lola, mabigat. No? So, she opted to stay behind and look after the lola rather than leave the household without the lola because of stigma and possible rebuke coming from not only the husband's family but the community as well because she did not perform the ideal role of a daughter-in-law. So, women. But let me also point out that the men may also be vulnerable or put at risk because of gender norms. So, usually, pagka may evacuation, inuuna yung mga women and children, ganyan. Ngayon nga, medyo nababago na in certain areas. Families na yung ine-evacuate. But the men, because of machismo, dahil nakakalalaki, kung uunahin pa nila ang sarili nila to safety rather than leave their families behind, di ba? So they stay behind and because of the role na-encounter pa namin ito, the role as the provider of the family, if they lose everything due to the flooding, for instance, or the storm surge, how are they going to recover all these things again? No? I was telling si Sir kanina na there was this guy whom we interviewed. He came from Saudi Arabia. Tapos sabi niya, hindi ko pwedeng pabayaan na lang yung aming washing machine, karaoke dito sa bahay, yung aming bubong, hindi pwedeng iwanan yan kasi pag tinangayan ng baha at mawala, hindi na ako makakabalik pa sa Saudi, sabi niya. Hindi ko na mapoprovide ito ulit for our families. So when we look at gender dimensions of hazards, we have to look at both women and the men. No? Siyempre ngayon, we're looking na nga rin at other genders, no? And their roles in disaster risk reduction as well. So meron kaming mga recent studies din on LGBT and how they're able to help in the recovery aspect of disasters. No? So apparently they have the skills to organize and rally or people and organizations for relief operations. Okay, then of course, social status in Bicol, in Tiwi Albay, meron sila nung system of pagpapadagos, wherein households with concrete houses, they serve as temporary shelters during the storm. Yan. So kahit kapitbahay nila, kahit hindi daw nila kilala, pinapatuloy nila sa bahay because their houses were safer compared with the pawid houses of their neighbors. So yan, they have this system in place. And local knowledge. So we have, again, parang na-mention din ito ni Dr. Lagmay kanina, we have to bring in local knowledge, what people know from generations of existence in communities. They are what we call in other cultures as local wisdom because they have merit in saving lives during disasters. Okay, next slide. Ang isang example po doon yung mga shellfish na dumadami daw yan sa shore, sa Tacloban, pagka merong padating na malaking bagyo. So isang species of shellfish yan. Okay, next slide. Okay, and the cultural values, yan, kanina yung products of one's hard work. It reflects also on their value as a father to their families. So hindi nila pababayaan na mawala na lang yan. And that puts men at risk, no? The ties that bind, that provide social capital. In Tacloban also, we heard about in Tacloban City daw, because we also went to other areas. We went to Giwan, Eastern Samar. We went to Tacloban, and we went to the Camotes Island. So in Tacloban, sinasabi nila, because Tacloban is a city, it's a melting pot of different ethnicities coming from different areas. The number of relatives that a family would have is very small. No? Whereas in Giwan, Eastern Samar, na sila ay doon pinanganak, doon lumaki, the network, the social safety net may be greater because they have the relative. Parang isang buong barangay, kamag-anak mo lahat yung nandun. So there are more people who will be able to help them in times of need compared with an urban area. No? So yun yung isa pang factor which puts households in urban areas more at risk. Bago dumating yung ayuda ng iyong kamag-anak, because yun yung in the Philippine context, yun sila yung mga first responders, di ba? Kanino tayo mangungutang? But of course, meron ding ibang aspects, kaya nga hindi tayo nag-generalize, kasi mas madali pang umutang sa iba kesa sa iyong sariling kamag-anak. No? But in this case, that's what was pointed out. Mas unang responders yung mga relatives, and in an urban area, far from their relatives in the rural areas, medyo mahirap ang ayuda. Unlike in the other area that we went to, na everyone was a relative of another. Okay, next slide. Okay, so let's look at social media or mass media in general in shaping risk perception. Nakita niyo to, our social media was flooded by pictures and memes talking about how people reacted to floods. So na-compare, syempre water pa rin yung issue, di ba? Between China and the Philippines. So sa China daw ganon. Sa Philippines, nakasakay siya, sorry, medyo hindi maganda yung picture. Nakasakay siya sa isang rubber horse. So ganon siya nag-traverse ng flood waters. Whereas in China, medyo mas formal, no? So medyo may comic relief in how people respond to flooding in the Philippines. This is Karina. Super Typhoon Karina. Next slide. O, eto pa. Baha ka lang, Pinoy kami. So, there's something about Pinoy pride or ethnic pride that's being shown in social media, no? And then, ayan, tumatalon sa baha sa Mequiapo area. No? So, these are messages that are being relayed by posts in social media. Okay, so mamaya, tignan natin how they affect risk perception. Next slide. Personal and local heroes are made. Sabi, yung bride, tingnan mo, nag-walk down siya down a flooded aisle despite typhoons, tinuloy niya yung kanyang wedding. And then Gerald Anderson, also all over social media as well, helping in relief operations daw. So this is how social media is able to shape risk perception, no? Sige, so matapang, Pinoy ako, and comparing pa the thing about Philippines and China. Yan, sige, next slide. Well, what's important is that people turn to mass media for information during crisis. When people do not have access to real-time news, they may turn to social media for information. This is based on the study by Lee et al. 2024. Studies have also shown that social media may be a very powerful force in shaping risk perception. It heightens society's risk perception far more than conventional media. That's why those who post on social media are called influencers, because they can influence and shape perception. There's also what you call as the social amplification of risk framework, wherein social media may act as a social amplification station in shaping the social experience of a hazard. So if you saw those posts earlier, what message do these convey? Okay, tumatalon sa tubig. Yung isa pa nga, hindi ko lang na-picturean kasi video siya. may nainom siyang flood water, so binubugan niyang ganon, no? Playfully sa kanyang kalaro dun sa baha. But of course, social media's potential for bias is high. Kasi isa lang na tao yung nagpo-post niyan, no? But the thing about social media is that the dialogue is possible. Pwede ka mag-comment, pwede mong i-bash yung nagpo-post. Okay? So, that's social media. Next slide, please. Okay, eto, no? So, at this point, I'd like to give you some insights on risk perception relative to risk communication. Risk perception affects specific design of the risk management portfolios, and it's what you can use to inform the risk management portfolio that LGUs are developing. Sige, so ito yung ilang mga common dyan. I'd like you to focus on this picture over here. Siguro yung mga kasing age ko, natatandaan nyo ba yan? Yossi, wag mag-yosi, wag kadiri. For Manila speakers, wag mag-yosi, wag kadiri. Kadiri means something that's parang hindi maganda, di ba? Disgusting, ganyan. But if I were here and you just read this, you have no knowledge of the Manila context, paano mo babasahin to? Wag magyosi, wag kadiri. Pero, pwede adto, adi adto. Diba? So, you see how language will shape risk perception. That's why we have to be very careful with the words that we use. Yung context-specific communication messages is very important here. Okay? So, yan, no? Manila context, okay yan. But other areas with different languages, baka medyo maging problematic. Kasi, wag kadiri, pwede ka adto, di adto. Thank you to sa mga nag-help sa translation kanina. Okay, next slide. Okay, so again, yung responsible social media during flood events. Social media is still important because using the term proposed by Wang and Zhang, they call it the digital art because social media gives real-time reporting of degree of hazard in localities, so you know where to go, no? They post videos, they post photos, they post people on the roof who need rescuing, ganyan. It also fosters self-rescue initiatives, no? Para ano yung magagawa mo on the immediate time habang inagaantay ka ng ayuda. It's also used as a rallying force to generate community support. Okay? Therefore, it's important to invest in tools to enhance risk perception even in the preparedness phase. Kasi meron tayo, di ba, yung preparedness, response, no, and up to recovery, ma'am, no? So, may mga phases yan. And continuous disaster risk information, education, no, should be done even when there is no impending hazard. So, wag nating antayin na dumating yung hazard and then dun lang tayo mag-disseminate ng information. Okay, next slide. Okay, and again, as mentioned also by Dr. Hall, yung integrated management approach, considering the inherent connectedness of geophysical and social forces, magandang yun ang ma-implement in relation to risk and vulnerability. The local scale in the RRM may be able to address risk and emergencies more efficiently, although ang caveat naman dito is, paano yun kung sila mismo apektado din, 'di ba? Kasi yun yung nangyari sa Haiyan noon eh. Sila din na-devastate. So mahirap din for them to, kaya natagalan eh yung sa Yolanda kasi even the DRRM implementors, they were also affected by the hazard. And it's important to build trust in government and in the program implementors. I remember nung time nung Haiyan, dun sa interviews din namin, sinasabi na, because even the evacuation centers were flooded and people got killed in the evacuation centers. And at that time, naging massive ang erosion sa trust in government. So, nung next time na nagpaano sila ulit, evacuate, medyo nahirapan yung gobyerno dahil nawala yung trust. But how do you build trust in government? You provide reliable data on sources, reliable data sources on hazards, provide reliable data and information. Hindi lang yung sources, but also reliable data and information. In the biological hazard during the pandemic, ito din yung isang naging issue. Kasi sino ba yung papaniwalaan natin, no? And also during that time, medyo eroded din yung trust sa DOH. Kasi dahil sa Dengvaxia, di ba yung Dengvaxia controversy. So apektado lahat ng mga services offered by yung mga health services na offered at that time because of the Dengvaxia controversy, and that was a function of erosion of trust. Okay, next slide. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dalisay, for enlightening us with your input on risk perception. So we would also like to recognize our stakeholders that join us via Zoom. Dr. Nancy C. Alomrod, the Director of the University Research and Publication Center in Notre Dame University in Cotabato City. And we also have with us Ma'am Abigail Tan, Advocacy Officer from ACORD Incorporated. So this time we